Now for me, earlier this morning, it was thermite until I found out that it's only one scientist advocating that. It's not a kind of a respected thing that loads of scientists have talked about. There are a lot, like Steve, I've run out of time. There are lots of other things I want to say about eyewitness testimony and these kind of quotes that you hear from people saying they heard explosions on the day. If I can have just a couple of seconds to get through this one really telling quote, which is a firefighter quote that I found on a controlled demolition site. And this guy, Craig Carlson, who was a firefighter there on the day, on this controlled demolition site, is quoted as saying, "I guess about 3 minutes later, you just heard explosions coming from building 2, the South Tower. It seemed like it took forever, but there were about 10 explosions." Now, when you hear that the first time, that's really compelling. It's the guy who was there, and that sounds like he's saying there were explosions. But that's because his quote is cut at that point. If you go to other sites where the rest of the quote is given to you, he then goes on to say, "At the time, I didn't realize what it was. We realized later after talking and finding out that it was the floors collapsing to where the plane had hit." So if you chop away the second half of his quote, you can make it sound like eyewitnesses actually sort of said there were explosions. But this happens all the time. And it's not cherry picking, it's selective slicing of quotes, where you don't actually put the whole information. So, you know, it can actually be enormously misleading. And the last thing, and I've probably only got 30 seconds, I just want to remind people that there are also such a thing as ex-truthers. I mean, if you go hunting for that term on the internet, you will find people who've changed their minds. It doesn't mean that you're supporting the status quo. It doesn't mean that you're supporting neocons. And it doesn't mean that you're somehow a traitor to the idea of justice. It just means you don't agree with the idea that it was a controlled demolition. That's it.